Ever feel like you're up against a wall? Like seriously stuck?
Yeah, we've all had those moments, right, where it just feels impossible to see a way out.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to dive into today.
We're looking at this devotion.
Okay.
It's from Wednesday, March 26th, 2025.
Right?
And the title is super interesting. It's called Siege and Promise in Samaria.
Ooh, that sounds pretty intense. What's the source material?
It's based on a story from 2 Kings, chapters 6 and 7.
Gotcha.
And the key verse it really focuses on is 7.1. And yeah, the story sets up this situation, like you were saying, where it feels totally hopeless.
No, I'm intrigued already.
So you've got this city, Samaria. It's under siege. Resources are running out. It's pretty bleak.
Sounds like they're in a really tight spot.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this devotion so fascinating. Because even in that dire situation, there's this sudden, almost unbelievable turnaround.
So that's what we're exploring today, this shift from impossible to possible.
Exactly. What can we learn from this ancient story? What does it tell us about dealing with those times when we feel stuck, when we're facing our own impossible situations?
That's a great question. What are the key takeaways?
Well, there are 2 that really jumped out at us. First is the importance of hope, like really holding on to the possibility of a positive outcome, even when everything around you seems to be saying it's not going to happen.
That's so powerful. So much easier said than done, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. But this story really illustrates that struggle. And then the second big idea is about the flip side of hope. It's a warning about how doubt and disbelief can actually block us from seeing those possibilities, those chances for things to change for the better.
It's like we get in our own way sometime.
Exactly. So let's dig into that first concept, the whole hope thing.
Okay, let's do it.
So the devotion, it starts by setting the scene in Samaria, right in the middle of this siege. Can you kind of paint a picture for us? How bad did things actually get?
The devotion doesn't sugarcoat it. Imagine you're trapped inside the city walls, enemies all around. There's no way to get supplies in. What little food they have is disappearing fast.
Scarcity on every level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about being a little hungry. We're talking starvation level. People are desperate. You can only imagine how hopeless they must have felt.
Yeah. It's that feeling of, like, there's no way out. And that's when the prophet Elisha shows up with this totally unexpected message.
What does he say?
He makes this very specific prediction. He says, about this time tomorrow, a seah of the finest flour will sell for a shekel and 2 seahs of barley for a shekel at the gate of Samaria.
Hold on, a seah.
Right. It was a unit of measurement for grain, a pretty big one at that, enough to feed a family for a while.
Oh, okay, so he's basically saying that suddenly there's going to be an abundance of food, and it'll be super cheap, too.
And this is in a city on the verge of starvation. It was sounded absolutely insane to anyone listening.
Like saying the desert's going to bloom overnight.
Perfect analogy. So what's behind this crazy prediction? Where's Elisha getting this confidence from?
The devotion makes it clear. It's not about some hidden stash of food or a clever military strategy. It's straight up the word of the Lord.
Uh-huh. So there's a different kind of logic at work here.
Right. There are forces and possibilities beyond what we can see and understand.
And that's a really powerful message for our listeners, isn't it? Even when things seem absolutely hopeless, even when all the evidence points to doom and gloom.
There might be something else going on behind the scenes, a promise of something better, even if we can't see it right now.
Right. And that's where trust comes in.
Yeah.
Trusting in something beyond our immediate situation.
It's like saying, okay, things look bad now, but I'm not going to let that define what's possible.
You got it. So how can our listeners take this ancient idea and apply it to their own lives? The devotion gives a few practical suggestions. What stands out to you?
I really like the idea of actively seeking out sources of inspiration, especially during tough times.
Makes sense.
For the people in the story, that would have been their scriptures.
Yeah, and for our listeners.
It could be anything that reminds them of strength and resilience. Books, podcasts, mentors, maybe even just remembering times when they overcame challenges in the past. The point is to intentionally focus on stories of hope and stability.
It's like choosing where you want to direct your attention. And the devotion also mentions sharing stories of unexpected positive outcomes. Why do you think that's so effective?
Because it reminds us that those turnarounds, those impossible shifts, actually happen. It's not just wishful thinking.
It makes hope feel more real.
Exactly. And it can be really encouraging for others who are going through something similar. Like, hey, if it happened for them, maybe it can happen for me too.
Love that. And finally, the devotion talks about maintaining an expectation of positive change, even when you can't see how it's going to happen.
That's a tough one,
Yeah,
especially when you're right in the middle of a struggle.
no doubt. But how do we even begin to cultivate that kind of hope?
It's a conscious choice, a decision to resist the pull of despair and keep that little spark of possibility alive.
Like refusing to let the current situation define the entire future.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about hope, even in the midst of despair. But the story doesn't end there. It actually takes a pretty interesting turn when we see how people react to Elisha's prophecy.
Ah, yes, the voice of skepticism.
Exactly. One of the king's officials hears this crazy prediction, and he's just like, nope, not buying it. What does he say exactly?
He's pretty sarcastic about it. He says something like, even if the Lord opened the floodgates of heaven, could such a thing happen?
He's basically saying it's impossible, even with divine intervention.
It's such a human response, right? When something sounds too good to be true, our first instinct is often to reject it.
Especially when you're in a situation as desperate as they were.
For sure. He's looking at all the evidence, the empty storehouses, the enemy at the gates, and he's like, there's just no way this can happen in 24 hours.
So how does Elisha respond to this blatant doubt?
His reply is pretty interesting. He says, you will see it with your own eyes, but you will not eat any of it.
Oh, that's a bit ominous.
It is. It suggests that there are consequences to this disbelief.
And the devotion tells us that Elisha's prophecy does come true. The siege is lifted, abundance returns to Samaria.
Just like he said. But that officer, he sees it happen, but he doesn't get to participate in it.
What's the lesson there for our listeners?
It's a warning about how doubt can actually limit our experience.
It's not just that we don't believe, it's that our lack of belief can prevent us from experiencing the very thing we doubt.
It's like we create a barrier between ourselves and the good that's trying to come our way.
And the devotion really emphasizes that true faith, it's not about knowing all the answers or having everything figured out.
It's about being open to possibilities, even when we don't understand how they might come about.
So how do we do that? How do we guard against those self-limiting doubts?
Well, the devotion gives us a few ideas. First,
Right.
it suggests that we actually confront our doubts.
Instead of just trying to ignore them?
Yeah. Bring them out into the open. Think about them, journal about them, maybe even talk to someone you trust about them.
Not to get rid of the doubts completely, but to understand them better.
Exactly. And then the devotion talks about creating a supportive environment, surrounding ourselves with people and information that encourages belief and hope.
It's about being mindful of the influences around us.
Because, let's be real, if you're constantly bombarded with negativity and skepticism, it's going to be really hard to stay optimistic.
But if you're around people who are positive and encouraging, it can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And lastly, the devotion encourages us to practice trust, especially in our relationships and communities.
Why is that so important?
Because trust is like a muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it gets.
And the stronger our trust is, the better we'll be at navigating those tough situations, those times when doubt creeps in.
Makes sense.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the power of holding on to hope even when things seem impossible.
And the ways that doubt can limit our experience.
It's a powerful reminder that our mindset plays a huge role in how we navigate the world.
Definitely.
So listener, think about a time when you faced a challenge that seemed impossible. Maybe you were certain things wouldn't work out. What if you had allowed for a little bit of possibility? How might that have changed things? It's amazing how powerful a little bit of belief can be, even when the odds seem stacked against you.
Food for thought, for sure.